There is no space for women outside of their homes or their workspaces, because anywhere you go, you get stared down at. And that's the thought of Guftagoo. So we started Guftagoo around less than 2 years ago.
As an activist in general, you're also working towards the rights of minorities as well, especially with the focus to Muslims in the country.
It's a space where you can just be and just relax and chill out. Bombay was worst affected by the riots following the demolition of the Babri Masjid.
In the last, let's say, 5-6 years, have you noticed that culturally and politically there has been a set of divide amongst communities in India?
I think today everyone feels religion is an important part of their identity. You see, you read in papers, and then you begin to think that all Muslims are terrorists, all Muslims are of a particular kind. So earlier we didn't see so many women wearing the burqa, but now it's almost every other person, Muslim, is wearing.
Hi, Saba. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Aakriti. Lovely to be here.
So, as a feminist activist, you started a safe space called Guftagoo for Women. Tell me more about it.
I think as women, for a very long time, I mean, this is very personal, the space Guftagoo, like all my work is that, there is no space for women outside of their homes or their workspaces, because anywhere you go, you get stared down at. So if you just want a moment of peace, of just being by yourself, there is absolutely no space you can go to. And that's when we've been thinking, like quite a few of friends were thinking that it would be so lovely to just have a space where you could relax, listen to music, just not get bothered, not get stared down by men. So, and that's the thought of Guftagoo. So we started Guftagoo around less than 2 years ago. And the space is where it was meant to be a cafe-like of space where women could just come in by, just take chai, some snacks, play Ludo, play Jenga, watch a movie. Now we do Zumba for women, it's thrice a week. So it's a space where you can just make friends, meet women, make friends. And in case you don't want to talk, you just sit by yourself and nobody will ask you why. That persistent, kya ho gaya, chup kyun ho, baat kyun nahi kar rahi. So it's a space where you can just be and just relax and chill out. So it's been almost 2 years, little less. But we have had such an amazing response that women are wondering why we didn't start this sooner.
So, as a feminist, you're working towards women, but as an activist in general, you're also working towards the rights of minorities as well, especially with the focus to Muslims in the country, right? And about 14 years ago, you started an NGO called Parcham. Why?
I think, meaning for those of us from Bombay, and meaning those who were born pre-92, meaning were young enough to understand what happened in 92-93, where, Bombay was worst affected by the riots following the demolition of the Babri Masjid. Many Muslims from Bombay migrated to this place, Mumra. And I was working there at that point in time, and then just the thought that it's a very small town, Mumra. It's, meaning the entire length is some 3.5 kilometers. But there too, you have a very neatly segregated Muslim and non-Muslim area. And if you see many of our cities today, meaning whether it's Delhi or Bombay or any Gujarat, wherever, you know that this is the Muslim pocket. That's where all the Muslims will be. And there is this animosity now, which is so deeply entrenched that it's impossible for Muslims to get housing in non-Muslim areas, right? So we've become ghettoized more and more. And when you're ghettoized, there are all these media representations of the Muslim that you see, you read in papers, and then you begin to think that all Muslims are terrorists, all Muslims are of a particular kind. And within the Muslim community too, there is all this bias, right? Because you've never interacted with a non-Muslim. Because when you're in a ghetto, you're in a school. Your school is up to your 10th standard, and your school is all Muslim. So you've never interacted with a non-Muslim. So also with many others. Like in my college, I was the only Muslim girl in my, whole class of 80 students. So where do you get to meet a Muslim and get to know more?
College you went?
In Ruia College in Bombay. So, and then when I went to TIS, which is like a social work institute, we are just 3 Muslims in that entire batch of 200 people. So so well. So we thought that, the best way of addressing hate is to build friendships. And for friendships, you need to interact with each other. And that's the thought of Parcham, that we thought, we'll get different communities together. We started with football to then get a team of Muslims and non-Muslims together to play. So that's how Parcham came into being. And since then, we've done a lot more. But our agenda is very much that, we should have Muslims and non-Muslims coming together, that this world would be better off if we learned to learn more about each other, became friends, had some bit of love for each other.
In the last, let's say, 5-6 years, have you noticed that culturally and politically there has been a set of divide amongst communities in India?
Absolutely. I think it has worsened. It was always there. Meaning, I think that the 92 riots set off something. The demolition of the Babri Masjid. Meaning, even prior to that, we had Bhiwandi riots. We had many riots in the country. But I think in the past decade, not just 5 to 6 years, in the past decade, we have seen a certain kind of impunity that allows for people to be violent. You know that nobody is going to touch you. You can lynch a Muslim on the streets, and the FIR will be filed against those who are trying to protect that person, right? So in such spaces, the Muslim feels victimized, even because it is how it is, right? So there's issues which are, the majoritarian hate is also bringing about a lot within the minority. So there is a growing sense of, your identity is under threat. You feel so victimized. So then you hold on to your identity like never before. So earlier we didn't see so many women wearing the burqa, but now it's almost every other person Muslim is wearing. So if you were to go to Mumra, you will see everyone in the hijab. It's really uncommon to see women without. But then again, like 10 years ago when I moved to Mumra, I could count from my home to the station that maybe I would count 5 women without the hijab. Today, I think since Parcham has started working, and because we use football and the girls are playing, in track pants, some play in shorts, and they don't wear the hijab, they give up the hijab after some point in time. We are seeing more and more women who are, meaning it's not too many, but at least there's a shift where, that women can choose the attire they want to wear. Or else,
do you think it's for Muslims or generally minorities in India where they feel that their religion is a part of their identity?
I think today everyone feels religion is an important part of their identity. Okay. Like the Hindu feels they are under threat, though they are the majority.
I don't, but sure.
Yeah, but oh my God, so
see, that's also come from a space of privilege.
Absolutely. But in spite of that, see, the kind of narrative that is being said, why is the Muslim the enemy? Because, the constant threat is that they are going to overtake us in numbers. It's an absurd mathematical calculation of Muslims ever taking over the Hindu population.
No,
It's not possible.
In fact, I'll tell you something which I said in a couple of my podcast episodes before this, that there are a lot of people, especially from Hindu majority, that come up and say that when there are so many Islamic states in the world, then why do the Muslims need to stay in India? They should go to those Islamic states and stay there.
Right. See, meaning, which is why there is this book. I hope that you're able to read it, that we put together. It's called The Queen, the Courtesan, the Doctor, the Writer. And it puts together stories of 50 Muslims who have contributed to the making of this country. So if we learn history, if we read our history, then we will realize that there were so many Muslims who contributed to the making of this country, who martyred their lives for this country. So with Ram Prasad Bismil, you have Ashfaqullah Khan, right? In his 20s, he was hanged for participating in the Kakori conspiracy. But we seem to have forgotten that name, right? Abul Kalam Azad, the first education minister of independent India, who we have to thank for our IITs, right?
Absolutely.
And we've forgotten him, right? We have Dr. Zakir Hussain, and he was the third president of this country, also founder of Jamia Millia Islamia today. And so there's so many men, and there was also so many women who've contributed to this country. When the country was formed, it was formed because, people across religion gave up their lives for an independent India, right? And with the promise, and Muslims stayed on in this country. So if you see the 51 census, I think there was some 13 million or 31 million. I forget the exact number now.
Largest population.
Right? Yeah. But they chose to stay back in this country. The first census
of the country, it's their country.
Yeah, so it is India, right? So Muslims chose India as a country when there was a Pakistan, which would be an Islamic country.
Yeah.
They chose to stay in a secular country because they were made to believe, and they themselves believed, that this was a secular country. Right? So if that was the promise of a secular India, that that Muslims have stayed, then that promise, meaning we owe it to everyone in this citizen to keep this country secular. Often in my trainings I use this example कि जब आप ना कोई टीचर क्लास में आती है and there are students who haven't yet turned up, or 5 6 7 students who are regularly late, when they, meaning because they are not there, the teacher gets angry or कहती है, and she yells at this entire class of how disrespectful they are, कि they don't understand the value of the teacher's time. But you're speaking to those who are already in the class, right? तो जो लोग छोड़कर चले गए, उनके लिए आप आज के मुसलमानों को सुनाते हो कि आप एंटी नेशनल्स हो. Those who left. So it is not those who stayed back who should now bear the cross of of that of those who left. So a country was created. It was created. That's our history, and we have to live with it. But we also have to remember that so many Muslims gave up their lives for this country. That there were so many Muslims who also participated in making the constitution of this country. There's so many Dalits who participated. So it's not only as if, meaning, I think that जो hate है ना, वो मुसलमानों पर नजर आती है. But the hate is for every minority. The hate is for anyone who is different from you. The hate is for anyone less powerful than you.
No, but are you trying to say that it is coming from the Hindus, or is there just hate existing?
See, I think as of now in India, there is, of course, a majoritarian hate that we cannot shy away from. There is a right-wing ideology which is promoting a certain kind of narrative, and which has consequences uh, for what this country is becoming or getting into. Like, I sometimes wonder कि ये जो lynch करते हैं, meaning when you see those mobs, no, like I remember last year at a Christmas celebration, there were all these young men and women, young, okay, who looked fairly educated, standing outside a church and shouting slogans. Would you want your child to be part of that mob? How are you not ashamed of your child's behavior, who is doing these kinds of, like activities filled with hate? Is this what you want your child to become? But then when you promote narratives like this on your WhatsApp group, this is what your child will become. So it is now just seeping in into every day, where expressions of hate are normal. It's all right to say things. The masks are off right now. And so it is majoritarian, but the hate is not limited to Muslims. The hate is also towards the Dalits. The hate is also towards the Christians. We can see that with the attacks on the church, right? We see that, there are private meetings in people's homes where people are saying their prayers and they're getting attacked, right? On what? On grounds of what? Meaning it is your absolute fundamental right, but you get attacked. But of course, with the Muslim, it's like, because we are very feminine, we're the largest minority, we are the bigger threat. And so there is this hate.
What is the goal that you have in the next 5 years with your NGO and Guftagoo?
Meaning the vision of Parcham is that, that we hopefully will have a society which is just and equal, which celebrates diversity, which celebrates interdependence. So that is what we keep working towards, various things that we keep doing. We do hope that hopefully in the next 5 years, we'll have a government which is more people-centric, which is not working for a few industrialists, which actually cares about its citizens and believes in the constitutional values of secularism and democracy and socialism, and would like to bring back those values in the country. A government which cares about scientific temperament and rationalism, so that, we cultivate curiosity in young minds, rather than, fill their minds with what we are right now, right? With mythology being, spoken of as science. So yeah, so meaning the goal is that we have a much better India, an India which is educated, which is rational, which is reasonable, which is accepting of diversity, which is celebrating diversity, which is living together as what the ideals were when we became independent. The thought of that new India that was imagined by say Nehru and Gandhi and Abul Kalam Azad and Sarojini Naidu. This is the India that we hope we will have.
Thank you so much. Now, coming to my last question, what is the one advice you'd like to give anybody who wants to go beyond the border?
I think there's enough to fear, but we have to get past that fear. Because really, meaning like Audre Lorde had said that, that your silence will not protect you. And so we have to learn to become more vocal about what we believe in. You have to stand by your conscience. You have to speak out when you see something wrong. I think that, why are we in this kind of mess is because, say, in our college, we see people bullying. We see people bullying anyone who's different. We see ki ye to, if there's a man who does not, they think ki, fir wo hijra hai. Yeah, there's a really silly joke on the Muslim and you're uncomfortable. But, peer pressure aisa hai that you go along with it. But that makes the bully stronger. That makes the bully feel invincible. That makes the bully think that he can get you away with whatever he's saying. So it is your responsibility to speak up then. It's all right to be unpopular. So if you're young, don't fear being unpopular for an opinion which is for justice, which is for the constitution, for the human rights. So that's about it. If you do that much, you'll have a much better country to look forward to.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for staying until the end. To help us continue these conversations, please subscribe on YouTube and like and follow on Instagram and Spotify.